Ruslan.
Is it possible that maybe the definitions have been mismanaged? Meaning this, I don't know if you saw the video, but I sent you the video from Phil Vischer, the creator of VeggieTales, and he has a video called "What is Evangelical?" And I had this conversation. I didn't know this. This is all new to me, right? But I felt a lot like you, and like what the heck happened? Like, because this isn't what I got saved into, right? When I got saved, it was just different, and I don't know how I could not exactly articulate it, right? And I talked to Spencer, I think his name is Missionary Spencer Smith, hardcore fundamentalist on YouTube, called out an acquaintance of mine named Ecclesia, who's kind of in the progressive lens of things. And I did a response video to Spencer, and I said, hey, Spencer, you can call out these doctrine issues, but when you start saying his appearance is grotesque and this looks weird and he has a grotesque orange contact lens, that's not okay. Now we're talking about appearances. That's nonsense. When we talk about doctrine, let's talk about doctrine, the close-handed doctrines. And so Spencer called me, we had a conversation, and Spencer said, well, there's modernist, there's fundamentalist. He said, and one of the few people that still identifies as a fundamentalist, so kudos to him. He said, I'm a fundamentalist. There's modernist, which he would probably put in the category of like some of the folks on the progressive side of things, right? And then he said, you're like a neo-evangelical. And I said, what is a neo-evangelical? And he said, you value the Bible and you hold these things up high, but you also have some questionable fellowship. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, if Hillsong or Bethel or a progressive Christian asked you to go on tour with them, would you go on tour with them? And I was like, well, I'm not going on tour with anybody. Like, I'm at the house. I'm not leaving the house besides to go to the grocery store and hanging out, right? And I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I've never heard of this. So then Phil Vischer, the creator of VeggieTales, dropped this video, and he talked about the differences between modernism. And modernism is more or less, hey, the Bible needs a rewrite. It needs to be reinterpreted. Is it really accurate? We're going to take a very modernistic view. Fundamentalists hate modernists and say they're all going to hell. And they hold the view that the scriptures is not just a high view of scripture, but a low view of culture, a low view of society, anti this, anti that. And they take a very literal view of scripture. So stuff like old earth isn't an option, right? The women's role in ministry completely out. We don't even go there. So they take a very literal role of scripture. They don't look at prescriptive versus descriptive passages. They don't look at Job being poetry or being poetic, and not necessarily the parts when Job's friends are arguing isn't literal, right? Meaning that don't quote those obscure verses in Job because that's not God or Job talking. That's people that are in error talking, right? So they take a very fundamental view of that. And then there's these neo-evangelicals, right? Who's like the Billy Grahams and the people that were against segregation. The fundamentalists were pro-segregation. Bob Jones University, Jerry Falwell. Bob Jones University didn't allow interracial dating till the year 2000.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Fundamentalists. Those are fundamentalists. And so my theory, and this is just my theory, is when Jerry Falwell founded the religious right, he took the phrase evangelical and hijacked it and blurred the lines. And now what is a neo-evangelical versus what is a fundamentalist? They're one and the same. And now you have religious right, MAGA culture, all of these things have infused. And I can't tell the difference between someone like me that's like, no, I love the Bible, I love Jesus, but like, I love equality too. And I don't think we should treat people horribly. And I don't think, we should legislate our morality on everybody. And I think we should be known by the things we're for, not just known by the things we're against.
Amen.
And I'm like, when did this all diverge? When did this get all so weird, right? And so again, Phil Vischer, it's a really good video and everybody should go watch it, I think Jerry Falwell, who I'm not a fan of, who as far as I know never publicly repented of his segregationist views, neither did Bob Jones, hijacked this thing and converted the definition. So now when people look, folks like you who are looking at it and you're like, well, I'm not that. Like, I'm not them. I'm not on that Jerry Falwell, Bob Jones University vibes. I'm not on that vibes. And so I guess I'm I'm just gonna deconstruct everything, right? And my experience with folks who have deconstructed is it's usually people that were hyper charismatic, casting out demons, people that were in our community, and I think I said this to you privately, in the Christian hip hop community, everybody became a 5-point Calvinist. Everybody, and I remember talking to brothers of mine that by and large are questioning the resurrection, talking to them on the phone, bro, you a 5-point Calvinist? I'm a 100-point Calvinist. You're a what? Like, okay. And that was the move, and that's where the bag was at, Brenda. That's where those were the circles that they could go tour in, right? That was when these guys, were very into the Mark Driscolls, right? You remember that whole segment. And so my experience is that those folks who have gone down the path of deconstructing formed their faith on really hard stances on disputable matters that I would say are gray. And by disputable matters, I mean specifically, do we have free will to choose God, or does God 150% elect everybody that's saved, right? Like, we're talking disputable, is secular music a sin, right? And they took really hard stances, and then when that thread got pulled, their entire faith collapsed, because they built their foundation on secondary and third issues and even opinions that, because of fundamentalism, which you're talking about, there's an answer for everything. There's an answer for everything. Everything is black and white. And I would say there are some things that are black and white. I do believe that God is a holy God. I do believe the Bible's inspired. I do believe sin is a real thing. But there are things that are disputable that I'm just like, I don't know. Like, cancel Netflix, Romans 14. Think about it. I don't know, go pray about it, right? So I know I just said a whole lot. Sorry. But so my question to you is, do you think it's possible that the definitions have been jacked up, and that the regular position of neo-evangelical, which is like a regular born-again Christian who's engaged in culture, loves God, that's been hijacked, and now evangelical, more or less, we don't even really know what that means, and that's why so many people have pushed back, and they've fallen into fundamentalist ideology without even knowing that, I've really gone off the deep end with some of my extreme views on these topics.
Yes, everything you said was brilliant. I completely agree. And also, I think what's coming up for me is that, like, let's see. I worry that progressive Christianity will become this definable, cemented thing, because I always look at that and I'm like, well, that's the moment progressivism will fall, and then we'll need to replace it with something else. Because anytime you get hyper dogmatic and you decide this is what we're about and this is what it means, I feel like it closes the door to all of those beautiful conversations. Like, so much of my progressive experience has been allowing myself and my audience to say, I don't know. How precious is that sentence? Yeah. I don't know. Like, do you know how many light years away some stars are? Do you know how grandiose this universe is? Do you know how deep the ocean is? Like, if you think you know everything about divinity and you know what happens in the afterlife, like, you are tripping. You are fooling yourself. Our brains don't even have the capacity to understand how profound and beautiful divinity is. And all we have is this gorgeous text called the Bible that we can harken back to see, like, the founding fathers and mothers of our faith and what their experience with God was. And for me, yes, these definitive things get so convoluted to the point that they either don't mean anything anymore or they mean everything. Yep. And it's too much.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. There's a quote, and I heard Andy Mineo say it, but he said the opposite of faith isn't doubt. The opposite of faith is fundamentalism, or the opposite of faith is certainty. When we have certainty on every single matter, and people hear me say it on here a lot, like, hey, I feel certain on a couple of core issues, and I say I don't know a lot because I don't really know, but I know the things that I'm certain about, right? And I think for me, Brenda, I got dismissed as the liberal Christian by all of my Calvinist friends. I got dismissed as the liberal Christian by all of my charismatic friends that were casting out demons. The majority of them are atheist or agnostic now, or they're completely have left the faith, right? And a few of them have reconstructed their faith. But all along, I was the guy that was like, "You mean you're not casting out demons, Ruslan?" And I was like, Nah, I'm not, bro. I mean, yeah, you know, pray for him. I'm just, you're not speaking in tongues? You don't pray in tongues every day? I mean, I've prayed in tongues, but I don't, you know. And I was that guy. And so if I got an interview with my buddy Rufat, who's an ex-Christian rapper turned atheist comedian, you'd probably get a kick out of it. And he talks about this, like, and he really still appreciates my faith, because he's like, bro, you never went into these radical extremes. And that's where he ended up. He ended up in these radical extremes, judging me, right? And 20 years later, I'm still walking with Jesus. I more or less believe the same stuff I did when I first got saved. And Joseph Solomon, one of my good friends who went through a process of deconstructing, he said it on this channel. He said when he travels, he said, if I want to travel long, he said, I got to travel light. I can't travel long with a gang of luggage and carry-ons and all these different, he says, backpack, and I could travel really, really long. And he said, now I hold a couple of close-handed doctrines. And that's always been my view. It's like I hold a couple of things close: literal resurrection, the Bible's the inspired word of God, Jesus is God, so on and so forth. And I hold those things near and dear. And so that's why, and I shared some of that with you privately, I've just never gone through that process. Now I've had doubts and I've had questions, and I've always came up around very intellectual Christians and very, a lot of apologetics and a lot of just, I don't know, safe spaces to just ask questions and challenge and push back. And I
didn't have that.
Yeah, and I guess so we don't really know our paradigm until we speak to somebody else. It's like, yeah, I didn't have that paradigm. So
before you move on too, I just wanted to say, like, the thing that I say about my channel is that God resides in black and white. Like, I believe there is absolute truth.
Okay.
And that's one thing that I actually know, that there is absolute truth. That
okay.
There is an answer to these infinite number of questions that we have. But as soon as we enter this fallen world, it's a world of gray. It's a world of chaos. And I also think that I would say this is the defining problem of religion in general, no matter what faith space you're in. When you are building your foundation of faith on fear, what I see all the time. And I also believe, like, in prayer, I receive this message that the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is fear. God is love. Jesus is the purveyor of love. He's the one pushing us towards that. And yet everything is fear.
Yes.
Fear of hell, fear of not being perfect.
Yep.
And it's just like,
fear of the vaccine, fear of the leftist agenda, right?
Fear of even having a conversation like this, and fear of changing your minds. And I know it. Like, this is something that a lot of people don't understand as well, which is like, yeah, I might push back on this evangelical culture, but I was the little baby angel queen of it. I was the one that organized our purity ceremony at church when I was 15 years old. I was making anti-abortion artwork in school. I was arguing 7-day Earth or 6-day Earth with my biology teacher. Like, I was in it to win it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm not coming from a place of like, hey, for me, I'm coming from a place of deep understanding. And my message is like, let's get into this gray, because I think beyond any other point in life, like, if you have these definite answers, why do you need God? Why do you need to press into prayer? When you find a gray area where you don't know the answer, what a beautiful opportunity to sit down with the ones you love, with yourself, with your spirit in prayer, and dive in. That's an invitation.
Yeah, that's good. So let's let you made a beautiful segue to go back to the purity culture. So you touched on that. So I don't know. Just talk about your experience with that and what it meant for you, because I think it's done more harm than good from what I've seen. But maybe I'm wrong, right? Like, maybe I'm wrong. But by and large, I've seen a lot of young Christian girls that were in the church that my wife was going to that was pushing this I kiss dating goodbye nonsense. And like a gang of them got pregnant at like 18 right? And just like went through some pretty tough seasons despite all of the purity culture. And me and my wife were dating. Like we were just like, no, this is nonsense. We're gonna approach it a different way. And thank God for the book Boundaries in Dating. So explain what purity culture is and why you reject it, and just your experience with it, and then kind of let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. In a nutshell, I see purity culture as this narrative that your virginity is not only precious, but it's the most important thing that you hold, especially as a woman, but men get it as well. So you have this gift. Like just 2 days ago, Jen Johnson wrote about like, don't let anyone steal the most precious gift you have. And Lisa Bevere wrote this horrible purity ebook on her Instagram that I despise. That literally says you forfeit your dignity, your worth, and your strength when you give in too soon.
Okay.
And that why would a man want to know you more deeply when he's known you so quickly? It also begets rape culture because it's this culture of modesty, which is that if you cause your brother to stumble, if you're a stumbling block,
you deserved it.
Yeah, your spaghetti strap was not thick enough. I have a friend who was sexually assaulted by our pastor at our church, the worship leader.
Yeah.
And leading up to that moment, she was told she swayed her hips too much. Girls whose bodies develop more quickly are told you got to wear bigger and bigger clothes, make the t-shirt looser, now looser. Obviously, I've talked to more Black women and women of color who say that their body type was just decimated through purity culture because it's just naturally curvaceous in a lot of those instances. And it's like, it goes back to a bit of colonization and white supremacy too. Even like what kind of body is acceptable, what kind of way to dance is acceptable or not acceptable.
Okay. No, you're good. You're good. I know the baby's there. You're totally good. If you need to take a break, we could totally take a break. So don't. That's heavy, and that is something that as a male I have no direct idea on that. Like I don't know what that is like. I have no context of that.
You guys suffered too. We get in that in a second.
Yeah, and I've said this before. Like at some point we got to address the issue with men in our own heart with regards to lust and with regards to these things, that you can't just blame women for everything and call everything a stumbling block, especially when some women don't know that may be whatever you think it is, or they're sending you signals or whatever. We live in Southern California. You're in LA, I'm in San Diego. When I go to the beach, I take my shirt off. When my wife goes to the beach, she wears a two-piece bathing suit, right? She's not in the beach with a shirt on, right? And my wife is Black, by the way. I don't know if you know that. So I hear the racial undertones of some of what you're saying as well. Like I understand that. So my question would be, in terms of purity culture, where would you say wisdom comes in? Like where would you say wisdom comes into some of this stuff? Because here, I'll be vulnerable with you for a second. So I did a turning 35 shirtless photo shoot last year on my Instagram. And it was fun, and I got, I have a trainer, and I'm really into fitness and stuff like that. And so last year I had a predominantly male audience. I had 90% male audience. This year it's more women. It's like, I don't know, like 40, 60, right? You look at my analytics, as I'm sure maybe you do sometimes. And so outside of the COVID-19 weight that I've put on this year, I think I'm going to, I don't think I'm going to do a shirtless photo shoot, right? Because I don't want to be in a position where any woman or I don't want to position anybody to look at me a specific way, even though for me, it's completely harmless. And it's like, we should celebrate fitness and health. And this is very important to me. And too many people are obese, and too many people are having health issues, right? So, I would say that that's a wisdom issue. Like to me, that's a wisdom issue. I'm not just gonna frolic shirtless photos of me all over social media because I can. I want to use a bit more discretion in that. Do I have that liberty? Sure. outside of the COVID-19 wait, you know, I don't know if I'm going to do a turning 36 photo shoot. Maybe I'll do a turning 40 photo shoot, right? But, you know, I guess that's my question is like in some of the purity culture stuff, yes, a lot of it has been really overemphasizing a woman's virginity, really coming down and shaming hard, especially young girls with this kind of stuff, right? But I think that that's a reasonable position to say, hey, you know what? Fitness isn't my niche. I'm not Ruslan, the fitness guru, right? So do I really need to put up more shirtless photo shoots just because I can? I think I could be a bit wise. You hear what I'm saying? Like, isn't there a level of discretion and wisdom somewhere in there? Or like, should we just all flippantly do what we want and walk around however we want?
Well, it's funny that you just ended with, or should we flippantly just...
Sorry for the extreme. I didn't mean to go to the extreme. Help me understand what's a reasonable way to navigate a conversation like that.
Listen, trust me, Ruslan. I love that you've said it that way because that, again, is the accusation of progressives. Like, oh, well, if you're not going to do this strict adherence thing...
But did you think that was strict? Brenda, you thought that was strict what I described? That to you comes off strict and legalistic?
Well, no. Okay, so you did have a more... You could say that you have a more nuanced view on it, but at the same time, that needs to just be a person's personal choice because the fact of the matter is, like you said, we both live in Southern California. There's constantly people walking around in states of undress. And to me, the more that we prop up these as our ideals, the more that we see someone's attire as a hint to what kind of morality they have or what kind of sexuality they have, the more we're going to other people in culture. Like this battle, quote, against culture just makes you less capable of loving your neighbor. Like for me, if I have a son, I'm not gonna raise him to bat an eyelash about like a woman's body. I want it to be, or a man's body. I don't know who he's gonna be into. Like I want it to be, your body is beautiful. Just because you even lead with sexuality doesn't mean that's an invitation for someone to take you as a sexual object. It is always your responsibility as the individual, male, female, whatever, to say, you know, what Jesus said. If something causes you to stumble, you pluck your eye out. You're not blaming the other person for it.
Yeah.
You take responsibility.
Yeah, it's good.
So I think it's just a slippery slope. I think it's beautiful if you want to say in your personal self, as I have, like my pendulum swung really majorly. Like I could tell you an abridged version of my story too, if that helps. But one of the things that I did when I was swinging all the way into hookup culture, which I say as the exact opposite of purity culture, like that they're both bad, that I'm against both of them. But when I was in hookup culture, I was doing a lot of like nude or semi-nude photo shoots. They were tasteful, they were beautiful, and so much of it was about emancipating myself from this culture and feeling like, oh, I just have to break free. I don't want to be constrained by this anymore. But still, like no matter what I was doing, if someone is a sex worker on a corner even, like we don't have a right ever to judge. I'm sorry.
You're good. Don't worry about it. I love kids.
He's never this wild. I think he's sad he doesn't have my attention, maybe. Too close. You know, I just think it's a slippery slope. You can say this is like, because now look at me, I'm like in a turtleneck. I actually feel sexier and more empowered to be more covered up situationally. I'm like your wife. I'll go to the beach in a bikini, but I don't feel comfortable in a tube top otherwise. But that is just my own thing. And I think if we keep teaching our people, our Christians, that you have to behave in this certain way and dress in this certain way to be a good girl, to be a good boy, to be an honorable person, then you will more likely other people that are not leading. Like people don't share that morality. A girl wearing a bikini is not less honorable. A girl wearing like a hoe dress at a nightclub isn't even letting me know what kind of moral stance that she has. I can't tell how promiscuous she is because of what she's wearing. Like, I just think it makes such a big, huge deal of something that is not, it just, I don't know. I'm losing the plot at this point.
Yeah, no, I get it. Do you think that again, I don't mean to just go to extremes, but do you think that the opposite extreme can fall into where a lot of these young women and men are then finding their identity in their body and in their physicality and in how they look at 19 versus how they're their body's gonna change after they have some kids, right? Your body might change after COVID-19. You know, you put on that COVID-19 pounds, right? So, but do you think that's that? Because that would be my concern. Is like, yes, I agree. Like, I hear what you're saying. I just feel like the opposite extreme is I wouldn't want women to find their value and their worth in their body or men for that matter, right? Meaning that like,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, like if a man is super shredded and his entire identity is, I'm just this buff guy, and then it escalates, and I see this all the time, it escalates to, well, let me take a testosterone booster, and then it's, well, let me shoot up some tests, and then it becomes body dysmorphia, and you're full on shooting up steroids, and again, like, this stuff happens, right? And so I think, wouldn't that be the problematic side is that, hey, yes, we shouldn't find all of our, value and purity in our bodies, but then the opposite side, we shouldn't find all our value in our bodies and how our bodies look and how we feel in our bodies.
Yes, and that's why I think that I love describing that I am sex positivity, body positivity person. Mm-hmm. Because if you are then leading with sex positivity instead of purity culture, then all of a sudden you're talking about enthusiastic consent. So if a girl is wearing a tiny club dress and Lisa Bevere says she has no worth, like, you are processing it properly, which is like, if this person is not exhibiting enthusiastic consent in a sexual situation, she doesn't want to be there, I'm not moving forward. And the same thing with body positivity. Like, we're to honor our body, we're to be healthy. And a lack of health in your body can go in so many different directions. Like, is it a sin to be anorexic? Is it a sin to be working out a lot? Is it a sin to be propping up your health as the most important thing in your life? Like, they all can be idols, for sure. And I think that it really is about that balance. But to the original point, like, I think the more that we prop that up as the thing, like, you can tell a girl is moral because of what she's wearing. You can tell Ruslan was having a bad time because he did a shirtless photo shoot. Like, he must have really been stumbling in his faith back then. Like, no, we need to stop equating people's attire or their body image or any part of them to how faithful or not they are in their walk. I just don't see them correlated the way that we want them to be.
Yeah. If you watch this and this made you feel a way or threatened you, it shouldn't have. Brenda's presenting different ideas. If anything, conversations like this reaffirm my views. It gives me stuff to think about, gives me research to do. But I do not feel threatened having these conversations, and neither should you. Like, you really shouldn't. Send Brenda some love, give her an encouraging comment on Instagram, give this video a like, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. Peace. Joshua the King came down and bore it all. Yeah, conversations front of the fireplace. All of my mistakes, how do I erase? Wanna operate at a higher pace. Birth pains causing the body to dilate. On a first name basis with the worst pain facing. Moments in isolation. See, I was hoping I would do this to get more family time. A busy mind and worried heart is this.